There was another fellow, and what happened with Darwin was he was really afraid of being wrong. So he kept on revising his book over and over and over. And it was like 25 years after his trip, and he still hadn't published his theory, but he had told friends about it. Now the thing about they're all like the English class systems, like basically the only people you hear about are the rich people. Like Darwin is the kind of person, he would have had maids and butlers, and and him and his friends wouldn't even think it's a big deal. There's just no way they would get through life without maids and butlers. So if you think about yourself, who's the kind of people that have maids and butlers now? They're very, very rich. He's what we call middle class English, but that really means they were pretty rich, and they had servants. And also there wasn't that many of them, so they all knew each other. They all went to the same schools, and they all went to the same universities, and they all were friends with each other. So his friends knew this other guy, Alfred Russel Wallace. And Alfred Russel Wallace came up with the same theory. He was working somewhere else in the British Empire in the South Pacific. And so his friends, the friends told Darwin, you better get on the stick, because this guy's going to publish your theory and you're not going to get any credit. So Wallace and Darwin wrote letters to each other, and they were very kind to each other and polite, and they decided to publish the theory together, which they did. So really, Wallace should get just as much credit as Darwin, because they published at the same time. However, as time went on, Wallace got a very eccentric. He came up with some crazy theories, and no one likes him anymore. And so we kind of forget about Wallace. Darwin did good work for his entire life, so he's the one that we remember. Selection, because nature is selecting who, right? Nature is selecting who nature is selecting who which individuals survive. See, nature selects, natural selection. It's actually not that crazy, because there's a thing called artificial selection, where, for example, I have two uncles that raise cattle in Ireland for meat, right? They sell the cattle, cows and bulls, to the butcher for meat, right? And if a small, scrawny male is born on the farm, they kill that thing right away and eat it, because they don't want it to grow up and make scrawny, small cows and bulls, cattle that don't make any money, right? If you keep the sick animals around and you let them reproduce, you're gonna be poor. Your family's gonna starve. So they kill that thing before it gets a chance to reproduce. And so over thousands of years, cattle have gotten bigger and stronger, because those are the cattle that make more money. Also, you can do with pet breeding, right? Darwin actually kept pigeons for pets. And you see this guy in the upper right-hand side? That's ridiculous. That's never going to survive in the wild. Why does that bird survive? Because some person decides to feed it and allow it to reproduce. See, that's artificial selection. Instead of nature deciding what lives and reproduces, a person, a farmer, or someone who owns pets decides what individuals get to survive and reproduce. So Darwin would have been familiar with the idea of artificial selection, and so natural selection would not have been much of a stretch. Now, so let's talk about some terms. Adaptation really has two meanings. It can mean the process by which you get traits that will allow you to survive. It's also the word for the traits themselves. Excuse me. So, my throat keeps together. Holy. So adaptation. Look for adaptations. Looking for adaptations. So this is the kind of cattle they have in Texas, and they're called Longhorns, right? And the Longhorns, the ranches in Texas are so big that the cows have to fight for themselves, and so over time, the horns have gotten really big. So the process by which they got big to fight wolves and bears. So to fight wolves and bears, they got big horns. So the process by which they got the big horns is adaptation. And the thing that allows them to survive wolves and bears is the adaptation that allows them to survive is the big horns, right? So the word has two meanings. One's a verb, to adapt, and the other one is the thing that you produce when you adapt.